What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I am back with a collection update. So I've been alluding to the fact that I got a bunch of stuff courtesy of some Amazon gift cards a while ago, and we're about to kind of dip our toes in that because I got a lot of shit. But there was also some other stuff that I got before I even got into those gift cards, as well as some really cool gifts from Thrash Maniac 99. Thank you again for sending me that stuff. But there's a lot of stuff in here. Got some really killer reissues. Got a lot of stuff that I missed last year in terms of releases that I wanted to go over, but I just didn't have time. And for some odd reason, a fair amount of German bands. And that wasn't on purpose. That's just kind of how this one worked out, but there were a number of German bands that popped up on here. Anyway, it's a fucking giant stack, so let's get into it. Somali Yacht Club, The Space. This is the fourth album from this Ukrainian stoner metal, post-metal, doom metal, psychedelic, rock metal. Kind of hard to describe, but the vibe is very familiar. I've been listening to stoner metal and psychedelic rock and post-metal and all the other shit I've listened to. It's just kind of a blend of all those things. Now, this was my first exposure to these guys. I heard a single that was streaming on Season of Mist YouTube channel, and I was like, dude, this is really good. This is that kind of stoner metal sort of chill vibe, but also kind of heavy thing that I really like just in terms of stoner metal and post-metal. It's very droney. It's very trance-inducing. It's not balls out heavy, it does have some heavier sections on here, but a lot of this is more akin to the maybe softer moments of Call to Luna, but kind of mix that with a little bit of Sleep, maybe Queens of the Stone Age. And I would even say bands like Elder and Hum kind of all wrapped together. I love the production here. The sound's very lush, very full. The bass on here really fills out the sound. It's just this big, fuzzy, warm, droning thing in the background, and they do a great job with ambient synths. The synths never take center stage. They're always in the background to accompany all the, sort of trippy, psychedelic melodies the guitars and the bass are playing off of. Very groove-laden. The songs are generally slow-building, but I kind of like that. It's the whole constructing and deconstructing thing that post-metal does so well. Again, the vibe on here is kind of cool because it's not necessarily bone-crunchingly heavy, but it's sonically massive. There's so many layers playing off one another, and they have some really cool, influences that seem to show. I think the song Gold almost kind of sounds like a Cure song, but sort of mixed with stoner metal. The song Momentum actually has some almost Alice in Chains-like vocal harmonies that I really dug. But generally, it was the longer songs on here that I really got into. You just kind of immerse yourself in the very spacey atmosphere that this album fucking advertises. Really good stuff. I dig the fuck out of this. I definitely want to check out more by this band. I love, good stoner metal, kind of trippy stuff. The stuff that's still kind of heavy, but it's not necessarily heavy in terms of a lot of stoner metal and stoner doom I listen to, but I don't know, the whole psychedelic vibe thing I just really get into. So if you have never heard this band before, much like I hadn't, definitely check this out. This is just a really fucking killer release. Threshold, Dividing Lines. This is the 13th album from these UK prog metal veterans. I own only one of their albums out of all 13. Well, now two, obviously. But I saw this was coming out. I actually revisited the one that I have, which is Clone, and I was like, this is pretty solid. I mean, why not check out this new one? And, it's straight up prog metal. I was kind of curious what a band that has been around for this long still has to offer. Their fan base definitely still seems to really love them. And honestly, this was pretty decent. It's very much straightforward, 80s/early 90s prog metal, very much in the vein of Dream Theater, Queensryche, Fate's Warning. There's a big thrashy crunch to the guitars. I think the songwriting here is pretty decent, though, none of this really screams flashy. This isn't like Dream Theater where they take, Bridges for a Long Walk so they can do some extra guitar noodles, or Jordan can explore every setting on his synthesizers. I think this is more, kind of hook-based. The songs, again, aren't super flashy, but they do deliver, good vocal hooks, especially on Hall of Echoes, Silenced, and Lost Along the Way. I think the choruses in those songs are very fucking strong. It's a moderately heavy album. There are some sections on here where they get, a little bit heavier. There's some djenty sort of riffs on the opening track, Haunted. And honestly, a lot of the stuff at its heaviest moments kind of reminds me of a band like Soilwork, except with all clean vocals. They're all sung in here, and honestly, the vocal performance in here I think is really good. Again, giant chorus hooks, and I think he's got just a really solid voice. I think the big standouts for me were the Domino Effect and Defense Condition. I think those songs are like a little bit looser. Again, they kind of explore the song a little bit more rather than kind of stick to a more rigid formula. Again, the formula works, and there's a good balance of heavier songs to softer songs. There's a lot of heartfelt lyrics. But I think when they're at their best, they're kind of pushing themselves a little bit more creatively, and Defense Condition and the Domino Effect are really cool. The Domino Effect has like a very strange ending, like there's this weird loop sample to it, but overall the song I think is really cool, and again, they get like a little bit looser on it, and it's sort of a fun song to listen to. Overall, this was pretty decent. Like, I don't think a lot of this jumps off the page. Like, a lot of it, again, feels very akin to like later Fates Warning, and Queensryche, maybe a little bit of mid-80s Rush when they're a little bit more synth heavy. But overall, it's competent, but it wasn't all my thing. But the standouts I think were really strong. So yeah, if you like just old school prog metal, definitely check this out. I might check out more by this band just because it seems as though the fans really do dig this band. And again, I'm trying to check out older bands that I have missed over the years and just see if I can approach them with new ears because, for whatever reason, my younger self was like, nah, fuck that band. Definitely a little bit more open to stuff now, but yeah, definitely check this out. This was pretty decent. Uada, or Ueda, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, this is their third album, Djinn, came out in 2020. I've been meaning to get something by this band for a while. Pretty much anyone that I've talked to about this band pretty much just gushes their ass off about it and is like, well, it's just time. I've only heard good things, and, well, I can definitely see why. First off, there was a slipcover on this. I took it off just because I need to be able to see the track listing, but also, I bought this new, and that slipcover was damn near impossible to get the fuck off. I almost decided to just tear it off. Luckily, I'm very patient, but I was also very irritated. Anyway, that's just sort of a side story there. This is fucking incredible. I think I went in expecting something different, like some more, dissonant, just sort of straightforward, blasty, droney, cold black metal, but what I got was just fucking very expansive, lush songwriting. Oh my god, the melodies in here are so goddamn good. The way these songs are structured and have these great fucking dynamics and peaks and valleys, it is almost kind of progressive. It's very comparable to a band like White Ward, especially that last album, which is just fucking mind-blowing. And the production here is fucking great. This is well produced, but it still sounds very raw, lots of atmosphere to it. The opening track, Djinn, opens up with isolated guitars, and you can hear this guitar tone, which is almost sort of atypical of a lot of black metal. It's very thick, and it's not very staticky or gainy or anything like that. It's not particularly cold either, but the fact that it's so clean sounding, it almost, kind of reminds you more of surf rock, which honestly, if you take the distortion off a lot of black metal, I mean, it's just evil surf rock with blast beats. But while this definitely does get evil sounding and dark sounding, it's very epic, especially songs like The Great Mirage, No Place Here, Forestless is absolutely amazing. The songwriting is what really drew me in. All these songs have cool twists and turns to them, and it's such an immersive listen. Forestless has some really cool, spacey effects to it. In the Absence of Matter has almost sort of a folky sort of, bounce to it. It's very, I don't know, kind of attuned with nature, kind of pagan-ish. And I think it's No Place Here actually has a Vincent Price sample, which I'm all for Vincent Price samples popping up in more metal. That just seems to be a thing that keeps popping up. And I love bringing up Vincent Price because it's fucking Vincent Price. But one of my favorite things about this album is that as long as the songs are, and they do get rather long, I want to say the last track, Between Two Worlds, is, God, I think it's around the 15-minute mark, might even be close to the 20-minute mark. Very long song, very drawn out, but it's very engaging. None of these songs really overstay their welcome. They keep you pretty much guessing as to where the song's going to go, and the fact that they are willing to experiment with different styles of music and incorporate it in their overall sound, it keeps this really fresh and interesting. Pretty much what I'm saying is I need more Uada, or Ueda, however you say that. This is such a fantastic release. If you are into things like White Ward, especially that last album, I can't see any reason why you wouldn't dig this. This is an absolutely amazing album. If I had listened to this in 2020, this might have been on my year-end list. It's that fucking good. If you have slept on this band for whatever reason, kind of whatever reason I did. I don't even remember the reason. I just think I was lazy about getting their shit. Anyway, definitely check them out. This is absolutely fantastic. All right, these next three are by the same band, and that band is Sacrifice. So I've been meaning to actually get some of this, band's stuff for a while. Canadian thrash metal underground legends, pretty much in that same vein as Razor. I jammed on YouTube. I saw how much original copies were going for, and I was like, man, that's kind of steep. But luckily, Shadow Kingdom reissued these not too long ago. I want to say, last year. So I jumped at the chance of getting them, and as much as I say fucking Razor is Canadian Slayer, I think Sacrifice is more Canadian Slayer than Razor. This is very raw, fast, energetic thrash metal, and this debut album, Torment and Fire, is just sort of this unhinged, raw beast of an album. Now, raw is definitely a good descriptor because the production here is rough, and this is a remaster, and it still sounds pretty rough. Like, the levels are kind of odd. I think the bass can get kind of loud in some spots. Namely, the bass solo on Turn in Your Grave. Like, it's just kind of loud, and again, the production's really rough. Like, the guitar tone is not the best. This came out in 1986 initially, but it feels like it came out, like, during the first wave, like, the early shit, like Exodus and fucking Metallica. Like, they didn't quite have everything completely dialed in, but they had all the energy and the tenacity, and that was enough. I would definitely say this is a kind of a one-gear album, but maybe two. Like, I don't know, it's got one more gear than Razor, because Razor just likes to fucking fly, but this band does like to break it down into groovy sections, and there's a lot of fucking fun on here, too. Like, the song Warrior of Death starts with a fucking belch and ends with a belch. I don't know, there's just something about that. But this does feel like it's set up really well. Like, the Exorcism is a really cool instrumental that sets up the song Possession, and it does a great fucking job. Like, it continuously kind of builds mood and gets the energy at a fever pitch before Possession explodes, and the song Necronomicon absolutely fucking rips. Again, this is just high-octane thrash with, again, like, kind of some rough production. Again, still, like, guitars, I don't know, there's something about that tone that kind of bugs me, and the high-pitched screams occasionally are a bit much, but overall, I dig this. Like, I think this is a really fucking fun album. I also do like the opening of Beyond Death. It has those isolated drums, and it sounds like the beginning of Motorhead's Overkill. I don't know if that was intentional, but I don't know, it kind of sounds like it was. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid debut. But we get down to their second album, Forward to Termination. Holy shit, this band got a lot better. The songwriting here is immensely improved. Like, this is beyond the one gear. There's way more groove to the songs. The riffs are even catchier. The guitar tone is slightly improved. Like, there's just like a little bit more definition to it. The vocals even sound better. Again, more dynamic songwriting. Like, I love the galloping chugs on Reanimation. Holy shit, that song's fucking awesome. But here's the thing. This only came out a year after the debut, and it is almost night and day in terms of the songwriting. Like, this is such a vast improvement on what they already had, established. Like, they were solid right out of the gate, but oh my god, this just has an absolutely incredible songwriting. Like, you didn't expect such a giant jump from album to album. Like, this is even like a bigger jump than I would say from like Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning. I think the leads are even tighter on here, and they found a good way to still retain all the aggression, but actually add like catchier hooks, like more memorable, distinct riffs. Namely the song Light of the End. I think the riff work on there is fucking awesome. But the song Flames of Armageddon, I love that song for its, a little bit more intricate riff work on there, but also the drum work. I think their drummer kind of got outside of the let's just go fast and I'm going to beat the shit out of this kit until it presses charges sort of mode, and started doing some really like clever drum beats and fills in there. I really love the fucking drum work on that song especially. And in terms of the songs, they're actually a little bit longer than they were on the debut, and it kind of felt like they spent more time with them. Like, I don't know how much they toured on, the first album, but it really feels like they just took the time to fine tune these songs, and well, I mean, it fucking worked. This is one of those albums where I feel I should have owned this as a teen, but I don't know, I just never came across it. But I would have jammed this fucking nonstop. Like, this would have been in the same rotation of me, like, going back to fucking Rain and Blood and Arise. Like, it is that fucking good. So yeah, second album, even better than the first. I recommend this one even more. And then we get to their third album, Soldier of Misfortune, and This one is even more dynamic, and production, I think they did even better. In fact, I think the guitars are the best they've ever sounded. And in terms of the songwriting maturity, once again, they pushed themselves more creatively. They wrote some longer, more dynamic songs. And I don't know if this is better than Forward to Termination, but man, it's at least right on par with it. But it also brings some different dynamics to the table. And I think first off, that production being cleaner and being able to hear the riff work even more clearly, man, I think that mattered so much. There's a bit more compression overall. I think the drums are more forward in the mix. And there's definitely a lot more melody on here, but again, it's still intensely heavy when it needs to be. Like the opening track, As the World Burns, and the last track, Truth After the Rain, there's clean melodies in here, and clean melodies weren't really a big thing on the first two at all. Like, it was very much go for the throat almost the entire time, but with each successive album, again, getting a little bit more intricate in terms of the songwriting. And again, the fact that they added melody but still retained intensity, because, I mean, there are songs in here that are just fucking absolutely rippers. A Storm and the Silence is just a fucking monster of a track. In Defiance is just aggressive as hell, and Pawn of Prophecy has like a stupid heavy fucking breakdown on it. But I like the fact that they just got better. Like, they became better musicians and better songwriters with each album. Now, I didn't get anything past this because, I don't know, it seems like past this third album, like the releases get a little bit dicier. I'm still willing to check them out. I've heard sort of mixed things about their other stuff, but I know these first three are fucking awesome. Like, I would say essential thrash listening, especially if you're a big fan of just shit like, you know, Morbid Saints, Slayer. I would even say Possessed to some degree too. Like, it has that sort of intensity. I'd say out of the three, like, musically, I'm probably the most impressed with this, but Forward to Termination, I don't know, that one just fucking hit something for me. But these first three, I don't think you can go wrong. I feel like this was just something that was missing from my early years when I was really into thrash. Like, thrash was my big gateway into a lot of metal, and this would have fit right in. I probably would have been as obsessed with this band as I was with, again, Slayer, Testament, you fucking name a thrash band, I was pretty much listening to them back then. Anyway, fantastic release. I recommend For Determination and this one probably a little bit more over the debut, but honestly, all three were really good. But yeah, just check out Sacrifice. They're fucking awesome. Black Sabbath, Headless Cross. So the 14th album from this legendary fucking band. Honestly, my favorite of the Tony Martin era. You know, Eternal Idol and Cross Purposes. It's definitely better than Seventh Star and Forbidden. That's for damn sure. Anyway, this was a gift from Thrash Maniac 99. He told me he had something coming my way, and I got this package. I was like, holy shit, I've been looking for this album for a while. And since these haven't been reissued in a while, because I don't know if IRS Metal is necessarily in business, but I think they are doing like a Tony Martin box set at some point. Either way, this was the main one I wanted. I already have Tear, which honestly is not a terrible album. Oh, there's like one song in there that's kind of irritating, but this was the main one I was after. I already have Tear, which I think is pretty decent too. But this one is definitely, I would say, the best one just in terms of songwriting. I think these songs kind of jump out a little bit more. Like, there's a lot of classic 80s heavy metal. I think the riff work is strong. The synths aren't overbearing on this one, which is a common complaint of the Tony Martin era, where there's just a lot of fucking synths. I think this is definitely more guitar forward, and it's doomy. It's dark. Like, I kind of like that, because there's some stuff in the Tony Martin era where it just feels a little too sing-songy, and that does have a lot to do with his vocal delivery. It is very epic. It's, you know, very strong. Like, he's an excellent vocalist, but sometimes he doesn't quite capture that sort of darkness that Black Sabbath should have. Songs like the title track and When Death Calls, which features Brian May doing an amazing fucking lead, kind of gets back to like the Sabbath darkness that at least was, you know, kind of on like more the Dio era. But a lot of these songs I think are really good. Like, the only song I think that was a little odd just in terms of the song structure was probably Kill in the Spirit World, which, like, the verses are very poppy. Like, I don't know, it has just sort of like just a flat out 80s metal sort of vibe, like, I don't know, like kind of Dokken-ish. But when you get down to the chorus, like, it gets way more dark and sinister and more along the lines of just straightforward doom metal. And that is sort of maybe an issue on this album, where it kind of walks the line between, like, you know, more accessible giant rock anthems and being doomy and dark. Like Nightwing, I think, is an exceptionally doomy track with really cool acoustic passages. But again, there are some songs in here that are definitely going for like the big hook and possibly like a little bit of radio play. This is an album I would say, like, I don't know, Tobias Forge might have listened to a lot. It's very vocally driven. Like, the riffs are great, but I feel like this is very driven by Tony Martin's vocals, which again, they are excellent on here. But I like my Sabbath a little bit more driven by the riffs. This is still a good album, though. I do really enjoy this one. Thank you again, Levi, for sending me this. It might not be my favorite era of Sabbath, but I still think there are some gems within the Tony Martin era, and I think this is the crown jewel, at least. Definitely check this out if you have never jammed it. You know, a lot of the Tony Martin era kind of gets glanced over in favor of Ozzy and Dio, but this is still really good, so check it out. Cro-Mags, Best Wishes. So the second album from this New York hardcore / crossover band of legendary proportions, like one of the most influential bands in that entire fucking scene. And this is an OG fucking CD copy that, again, Levi sent me. Thank you so fucking much. This one fucking surprised the fuck out of me. I was like, holy shit, dude. I have been looking for this, and, well, admittedly, Age of Quarrel, I still need that one for a long time because I fucking love Cro-Mags. I got into them fucking years ago, back when I was a teen, and I just kind of failed to follow up on them. I started with Near Death Experience, which is kind of a so-so album, but I definitely dug the overall sound, especially when I heard some of the earlier stuff. Now, this comes at an interesting period in the band's history because Age of Quarrel came out of the gates, fucking big, nasty, hardcore fucking sound. Really didn't have a lot of the crossover elements yet, but there were still like teasing bits of it. It was definitely more of a hardcore album. But at this point, their frontman, John Joseph, had left the band in '87. This came out in '89, and he didn't return until 1991. He and Harley have a very tense relationship. Actually, I don't think that relationship really exists much anymore because I want to say, like, there's been instances where Harley has threatened to fucking beat the shit out of him. I think he pulled a fucking knife on him once at a fucking show where they met up. It's fucking tense. Like, you know, New York hardcore doesn't fuck around. But musically, this is also interesting too, because this is where I think they really just embraced being a crossover thrash band. Like, there's still hardcore kind of all over this, but thrash metal is the main thing on here. That is what's driving all the riffs, and Paris's riff work in here is fucking fantastic. The riffs on The Only One, Down But Not Out, and Crush the Demoniac. I looked at that, I was like, is it demonic? No, they threw an A in there for reasons. That shit fucking rules. Like, that is honestly some of my favorite riff work I think I've heard in this band. And this is an album that I want to say I've only jammed maybe once before, and coming back to it, man, this just fucking rips. I do have some issues with Harley's vocals. Like, he has a good hardcore delivery when he's just like flat out delivering just, you know, bellows and shouts. But when it comes down to the singing, he's kind of like an atonal Glenn Danzig, especially on The Only One. The vocals are just strange on there, but the riffs really carry it, so I was like, I can look past this. And there might be an issue with like dynamic range in here because I feel like certain songs will swell in volume in certain spots. But I love the fucking songwriting here. Like, this is just a fantastic album. I do need to get a copy of Age of Quarrel. It has been forever since I've listened to that, and I'm tired of, like, listening to it on YouTube and fucking Spotify. That's bullshit. I need to own a copy. The most I can say is I own the song Age of Quarrel, which is on this album and not on the album Age of Quarrel. Either way, great fucking album, great fucking song, great fucking everything. I love this. This is just an absolutely fucking sick album. I pretty much say, like, this is a fucking classic, like most people know it. But if you have never listened to this for whatever reason, oh my god, just check it out. Like, you know, the vocals, again, sometimes a little bit off, but the riffs and just the energy on here, never off. This is just fucking killer stuff. Again, thank you, Levi, for sending me this, and Headless Cross. You didn't have to, but I really fucking appreciate it. And yeah, definitely going to be jamming those a lot. So thank you once again. And again, for everyone else, check them out. Destroyer 666, Never Surrender. This is the 6th full length from this originally Australian black and thrash metal act. I think they've moved around quite a bit. They were in the Netherlands for a while, and I'm reasonably sure they're in London now. Anyway, I've been a fan since, God, I would say like Phoenix Rising and Cold Steel for an Iron Age. I really enjoyed those albums. They were one of the original black and thrash bands that I got into along with R Noir. Really just got me, you know, in love with the whole fucking fusion. I love black and thrash. It's one of my favorite fusions out there. And saw they were coming out with an album. I figured I'd check it out. I really wasn't a huge fan of their last EP called The Wild. I thought that one was just kind of so-so. And, yeah, there's been some diminishing returns, I think, unfortunately. This is just a very cut and paste by the numbers album. It's mostly just a thrash album. Like, there really aren't a lot of black metal aspects on here. Like, maybe Pitch Black Night. It has some, you know, colder tremolo riffs, kind of remind you of, like, oh yeah, there's a little bit of black metal of this, but it's like a little bit. Like, you know, the main meal is thrash, and then the parsley that's next to maybe the steak is black metal. But unfortunately, that's not the only issue I have. Like, I love thrash metal, but again, this is very by the numbers. Like, there are really no surprises. And, like, the production's kind of odd. The music itself is very compressed, like lots of modern production. Like, it's not terrible, but you have this reverb-drenched vocal performance from KK Warslut, and it just doesn't fit. And, man, these lyrics are fucking dumb. Like, I know, like, you know, like, this band definitely likes to throw out, like, edgy lyrics and shit like that, and KK Warslut likes pissing people off. I know, it's just ridiculous. A guy with that name likes irritating people. Unheard of, right? But a lot of the lyrics are just kind of flat out just dumb. Kind of cringy, too. Like an old man telling you to get the fuck off his lawn, except he's wearing like a battle vest he hasn't washed in 35 years. And if the vocals weren't necessarily that clear, I probably wouldn't even bring them up, but you can hear them, especially on a song like Guillotine. Man, that's just like just a bad oi punk meets thrash song. Like, a lot of these songs kind of just stay on that D beat and just kind of live there. You get like a riffy breakdown here and there. It feels like you ordered a Creator album from Wish and this is what showed up. I do like this band, but, you know, it's mostly their earlier stuff. Like, the more recent stuff that I've picked up by them hasn't been very good. This is just very repetitious, kind of dull for, you know, black and thrash. Like, it just doesn't really have the energy that I feel like it should. Like, yeah, sure, they're playing fast, but it's just kind of the same dull riffs. In fact, there's a lot of riffs that I feel kind of repeat. Like, you know, Never Surrender and Grave Raiders really kind of sound like the same melody kind of repeated. I don't know, this one just didn't seem to work for me. But still, I mean, if you like black and thrash, I'd still say check it out. Like, if you're a fan of the band, you know, I definitely still am, but I'm not a fan of this. Still, check it out, form your own opinions. You might really dig this one. This one just definitely missed the mark for me, but again, check it out. You might really dig it. I just didn't. So yeah, there's that. The Unslept Bad Chapters. So the debut album from this, I guess you could say Toledo, Ohio-based rock band. Actually, a couple of my buddies are in this one. I've been meaning to go over this one for them because I told them I would, and I like their music. This is more just straight up rock. Like, it's just heavy, kind of bluesy rock, like very much in the vein of bands like Clutch, Seven Mary 3, with a little bit of, like, you know, Tom Petty singer-songwriter energy. I just, you know, dig them. And it's really interesting because I've never known any of their song titles at all. I just go see them live and they put on a great show, and then I hang out with them later and drink some beers and talk about music. It's generally a really good time. Hearing them in a studio, though, it's very different because, again, I'm used to them live, and I think this is still really solid. Like, they capture the essence of the songs. Granted, you know, studio, more compression, some different effects come in. Like, there's some, like, synths that sort of pop up in the background, some of the songs, but the songs are just straightforward fucking rockers. Like, the opening track, Mr. Pumpkin Eater, just has an amazing, straightforward, simple, awesome riff. Like, you know, something you would expect on like a early ZZ Top album. Like, it just drives home this riff and it gets stuck in your head. Bluesy, gravelly vocals, great bass work by Buddy Bailey, is an awesome bassist. And I love the drum work. Again, that's one of my other buddies on the drums there. So yeah, I'm going to fucking promote the living hell out of him because he's a solid drummer. And almost kind of a more metal drummer in a rock setting. Like, he has an aggressive style of drums, and I've watched him play drums tons, and it's just sort of his nature to be more aggressive when playing. And I think it adds like an added tenacity to the songs. And the songs are just, again, like kind of all over the place in terms of like the rock spectrum. Like you get bluesier songs, you get some really heartfelt ones like Minute Alone and Fallen. Great vocal hooks on there. Dan's vocals are just, again, rough, gravelly, kind of like a Billy Gibbons-esque, like, that kind of gruff old blues man sort of sound, but he also gets my buddy Bailey behind him, who does like these just big loud roars every now and then. You do have like some slightly heavier moments in songs like Turn the Motor, and it's just really interesting to hear them, again, not in that live setting, but the other stuff they add in, like, again, there's synths, I think there's like piano in there, like there's like acoustic guitars, which they really don't bring out an acoustic guitar live, and there's even a gun at the end of the last song, The Job, which of course they don't bring a gun with them live. That would be on the news. Now, as much as these guys are my buddies, I am critical, and the one thing I'm still kind of critical about is the guitar tone itself. It kind of feels like there should be more warmth to it. Like, it can be kind of scratchy sometimes. And seeing them live, sometimes the guitar tone can be a bit much, especially when they're doing like a more like atmospheric section where they kind of just drone on stuff. But just an added bit of warmth, like a little bit of like stoner rock warmth to it, I think would add a lot to this. I know pretty much all three of them are big Queens of the Stone Age fans, so maybe like a little bit of that injected into their sound overall would be good. But I mean, I dig this overall. Like, I think these are good, heartfelt songs. The songwriting is well done. There's great hooks on it. It feels earnest. Sometimes it's just like hearing like good straight up rock. Like, I listen to a fuck ton of metal, and hearing something that is a nice break from that but still captures like some sort of heaviness, like a little bit of energy to it, I dig that. So if any of that sounds good to you and you like stuff like Clutch and Seven Mary 3 especially, I'd say definitely check this out. It's a good fucking listen. Exorcist, Deadly Possession. This is the debut full-length from the Swedish death metal act. Came out last year. I got this courtesy of the Metalhead box. And believe me, when I saw the print at the bottom of this CD stating it was recorded and produced by Thomas Skogsberg at Sunlight Studios, I was very excited because that man is known for some excellent stuff that I love. And yes, this is 100% HM2 fucking driven, old school Swedish death metal. Oh my God. Yeah, like this actually legit sounds like this could have come out in 1990 and fit right in with Entombed and Dismember and all of that wonderful fucking filthy HM2 death metal that I love. After you get past the intro, this is 100% the Stockholm sound. Again, the production could not be, more perfect. Maybe, bring the vocals down a hair, but that's about it. Like, the tone is there, the raw sound is there, the riffs are 100% there. The vocals have like a little bit more of a thrashy sort of vibe to them, but it's how he enunciates stuff, and behind some of these sludgier riffs and the groovier sections, it almost kind of gives it a doomy sort of feel. This is a very young band from what I gather. I mean, if you look at the picture of them, I want to say I heard these kids are still in high school or just getting out of it, but they already are doing really well. There's lots of good dynamics. There's a good mix of brutality and melody. The song Gold Beneath the Sand has some really excellent, like, sort of creepy but melodic lead-ins. There's even some church bells to it. The riff work on here is very fucking good. Like, this band is already kind of ahead of the curve, I would say. While I do think, like, this is definitely a lot of worship and tribute, and it's very direct worship and tribute. Like, there's a ton of HM2-driven bands out there that actually put their own spin on it. This is very much going for that initial first wave of that sound, especially in songs like Cranial Nails, which that sounds like a lot of fun. It brings the crusty influence, the D beats behind it, and again, when you have Thomas Skogsberg doing the production, I mean, it was very clear what these guys were going for, and I have to say they nailed it. I love HM2 death metal, almost kind of no matter what you do with it. Like, it's that tone. That tone is just so fucking heavy. But it's kind of cool seeing it employed in different ways with like more melody or like sort of a different style of music, like more like crust or power violence or grind or even, I would say, doom metal too. But when it's completely at home, in its original state, it's hard not to fucking love it. So while I'll say originality is definitely not this band's thing, I fucking love their execution. Like, this is spot on, awesome, old school Stockholm sounding death metal, and the whole album fucking rips. Like, every song in here I think is really fucking good. Definitely check out this band. This is an awesome debut. If you're a fan of like an Ever Flowing Stream or Left Hand Path, you're gonna like this because it kind of sounds just like those. Fuck it, throw in Dark Recollections by Carnage as well. It fits right in. Again, old school fucking 90s Swedish death metal glory, pretty much captured in a new band. Just check it out. It's good stuff. An Abstract Illusion Woe. This is the second album from the Swedish progressive death metal act. I have been hearing a ton of hype about this from a lot of different channels. I finally decided to check it out, and yeah, no, this is really exceptional progressive death metal. Very much in that vein of early Opeth. I would say that had to be an influence in here, but it has its own interesting wrinkles on here as well. It's a little bit more like brutal in spots. I mean, definitely more brutal than modern Opeth. A lot of things are more brutal than modern Opeth, but I think like breakdown heavy. Like you get those sort of like syncopated breakdowns that scream more like decapitated in spots, but it's the instrumentation here, it's the songwriting. It's very lavish, it's very ornate. There's some extra instrumentation that is employed very well, namely cello, violin. There's even a clarinet on here, which is absolutely excellent. I love the fact that horns, and I guess woodwinds in this case, are really making an appearance in metal, and prog metal is definitely the spot for that. Lots of cool keys for additional atmosphere, and sometimes they even sort of take the forefront doing like lead melodies as well. The songs are very long and of course very dynamic, which you should expect from prog metal. The song Tear Down This Holy Mountain has this awesome jazzy section to it. I think it even has like some more electronic drums to it, but there's this jazzy swing. It's very soft rock. The guitars are very clean. And with all the stuff that is going on here, I think the production here is pretty damn spot on. This can swing moods very abruptly. And I don't know, I kind of like that. Like this can be a little bit much at times in terms of like how much it, you know, kind of like ventures off the beaten path to try some different stuff. But honestly, when it comes together, it's great. There are some excellent fucking riffy moments on Prosperity. Like they lay on this particular breakdown, this like syncopated chug towards the end, and just drive home that fucking hook and add a lot of cool melody on top. And again, it kind of comes back to the keyboards. I think the keyboards, they're varied. They use a lot of different sorts of settings and tones to really just kind of match the mood. Like you get some more like washy 80s synths. You even get some classic Hammond organ stuff on here too, which kind of gives it that classic prog vibe. I love the very soft instrumental Blomsterkrans. Sure. I think the strings in there are really excellent, but I think one of my favorites has got to be In the Heavens Above, You Will Become a Monster. There's something about like that sort of desperation in the vocals. Like the screams are very just like, I'm trapped. They're very haunting. I don't know. They definitely create a very interesting mood on there. Actually kind of similar to Garia. That has that sort of vibe to it where they're just desperate and almost pleading with the listener. But yeah, this is really good. I don't know if it would have made my year-end list, but I really dig this, and actually I want to try to find their first album as well, and I think they have one other EP. I think it's a little bit more blasty than Opeth, but there's definitely some warranted comparisons there. Definitely check this out. I think this is a fantastic album. Again, I'm going to be hunting down more if I can find it, but yeah, solid stuff. Castrator, Defiled in Oblivion. This is the debut album from this New York-based death metal act, featuring members of Hypoxia and Gruesome, and this is just fucking ferocious. I would say this album just repeatedly kicks you in the balls, but let's be honest, it's already chopped them off and nailed them to the wall and kept them as a trophy. This is just fucking sick. Like, this is straightforward, in-your-face, chuggy, fucking riff-driven death metal that pulls no punches in terms of brutality, but still somehow generates some really good fucking earworms. Like, this is in the same vein as like Suffocation, Baphomet, but also like Blood Red Throne, a little bit of Cannibal Corpse. It's so fucking on the nose and in your fucking face, and I loved every fucking second of it. I believe this was on Miller's year-end list, and holy shit, I should have listened to this. I remember hearing about it coming out, and again, just swamped with new releases last year because there was so much cool shit, but this one flew under the radar, and fuck, dude, this could have been on my year-end list. Lots of blast beats, but it's very groove-oriented. Like, it has that 90s death metal sound, and as much as there is like a big New York death metal sound to it, like there's also a huge Floridian death metal presence. Like, there's thrashier riffs, especially in the song Inquisition Sins. Like, you just get like a little bit of that, you know, I would say like Deicide and Monstrosity sound that works in there. The vocals in here are fucking excellent. She has an amazing voice. And yes, this is an all-female band, and they're all members of different groups, so this is technically a super group too. And, well, you know, super groups are generally kind of dicey. I'm really not sure, but this is more along the lines of like a super group that's starting off like, I don't know, Bloodbath. This captures an old school energy, but it's, I don't know, just very engaging. Like, I love the fucking riff work. The riff work really just keeps this driven. Like, this isn't an intense downhill run of an album. No breaks on here. Again, the only breaks you really get are like just, you know, groovy fucking sections and breakdowns, and that's really not breaks. That's, you know, still banging your fucking head ferociously. I pretty much ended up liking every track in here, but Voices of Inverado was definitely a big standout for me. Purge of the Rotten Ones. And honestly, I really dig their cover of Countess Bathory. I think they did a really good job. They fucking brutalized it a little bit, but I mean, it still kind of has that old school energy to it. This album's fantastic. I should have fucking got this when it came out. I should have fucking reviewed it, honestly, because this is everything I love about death metal, and this is one of those that reminds me of, like, first initially hearing death metal. Starting with bands like Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, and fucking Suffocation, like, this kind of just fits right in there. More so like Cannibal Corpse and Suffocation than Obituary, but yeah, this is just fantastic, old school, fucking brutal-ass death metal, and it whoops ass. Start to finish. If you have not checked out this band for whatever reason, this is one of the big recommendations on here. I fucking love this album. So yeah, definitely check it out. Cult of Luna, Salvation. This is the third album from this Swedish post-metal / sludge metal. They were kind of on the cusp at this point. I would say this is where they really embraced more post-metal than anything else. Their album before this, Beyond, was still a little bit more on the sludge metal side. This really just kind of opened up the atmosphere in here. The only album I'm missing in this band's discography is their debut, so that's the last one to hunt down, but I've been a huge fan of Cult of Luna for fucking years. Honestly, I would say, like, they're one of my favorite post-metal acts, like, right there with, like, Neurosis and Isis. Like, I just get into their wide-open songs and crushingly heavy, droning riffs, but all the additional atmosphere, the keys, extra percussion. There's just something about this band that I really fucking dig. And I would say this is one of their albums where I think they were really honing in on the sound that would really define them. Their first two albums are sludgier than hell, definitely atmospheric, but it's more about the heaviness. This is about the heaviness and the spaces in between. The opening track, Echoes, takes a long time to build up. Like, you have these droning single notes. They're very, you know, kind of dark and kind of sinister sounding, and there's this slow progressive build, which Cult of Luna would definitely become known for. But the music takes a long time to settle in, and I like that. There aren't vocals on this opening track until the 6-minute mark, and the song is 12 minutes, so only about half of it has vocals, and the vocals are raw, throaty, and I would say, like, more aggressive than they are anguish now. Like, kind of the anguished, throaty roars are definitely Cult of Luna's thing now, but this was back when Klaus Ryberg was doing, I believe, just vocals, but the rest of the band was doing, like, backup vocals to accompany him, so his approach was a little bit different, and there's even clean vocals on here, too, which, honestly, clean vocals really aren't much of a thing with Cult of Luna. Like, occasionally you get, like, you know, like, some gravelly sort of groaning vocals that aren't necessarily growled, but definitely not clean. I like how the production feels a little bit different on here versus a lot of their recent stuff. A lot of their recent stuff, very open. This feels a little bit more compressed, but that kind of helps me hear all the extra stuff. Like, the guitars are a little bit more compressed, like, while they are very heavy, just sort of sludgy and ugly, I can hear more of the keys. They don't kind of get lost in the droning hiss of the guitars now. And I think with the stronger emphasis on melody and atmosphere on this one versus the first two, I think that really helped. Especially the song Leave Me Here, which I'm reasonably sure that might have been the first song I ever heard by them, but it was on a compilation, and I can't remember, like, which one. I think it was probably one I got with a magazine fucking forever ago. And the atmosphere in here is really interesting. In fact, I think there's, like, this transitional atmosphere thing that goes through with, like, these spoken word excerpts. Like, I don't know if it's one of the guys in the band or they just sampled some interesting bits of stuff that, like, Werner Herzog said, because it kind of almost sounds like him, but again, it's a little, like, muffled, like it's being played on an old phonograph or a wax cylinder. I mean, if you're, like, truly old school, like Dreadful Rick, you only get stuff on wax cylinder. But yeah, the whole album kind of feels like a just dark, dismal journey that while it does have some bright spots of pretty melodies, like a lot of this is just down in the dumps, especially White Cell. White Cell just feels very depressive. Like, that song needs a fucking hug. But yeah, no surprise, I fucking love this. I love most of Cult of Luna's discography, and again, I'm only one short of completing it in terms of the full lengths. But yeah, this is a fucking excellent album. Like, this would be a hard discography to rank because I do love the majority of their albums. So yeah, if you have never checked this one out for whatever reason and you like bands like Isis and Neurosis, there really isn't any reason why you wouldn't like this band at all. Definitely check it out. Pretty much everything that I've listened to by Cult of Luna rules, but that's just me. I'm a giant fucking fanboy, but yeah, just check it out. It's good stuff. Deserted Fear, Doomsday. This is the 5th album from this German death metal / melodic death metal act. Came out last year in Century Media. I've been a fan of these guys for a while, and I would say like this is kind of like meat and potatoes death metal with like a heavy bolt thrower influence. A lot of this is very groove driven, very like double time, you know, kind of that bolt thrower, like for victory sort of sound, but mixed in with a lot of like classic In Flames riffs and like classic Hypocrisy. It's big on energy and sort of like a triumphant, dominating sort of sound, but it's also big on the melodic hooks. And I like this band. I like what they do, but man, they really kind of stick to the formula. Like, I don't think anything on here is necessarily bad, but a lot of this kind of ran into each other. Like, you kind of get the same grooves, the same, you know, very good mellow death riffs, but again, very samey. There's a lot of epic energy in here, very triumphant, very battle-driven, you know, lyrical themes. Especially on songs like Reborn Paradise, I think the ending melodies in there are particularly good. Like, they're very catchy. You do get like some stuff that gets a little bit faster, like Follow the Light, that Binds, I think kind of steps outside of the formula a little bit. But overall, like, this band has a very particular sound, and honestly, if you listen to, I would say, any of their albums, like, it's very much on the nose. Like, there really isn't a lot of variation, but it's one of those bands that they execute their sound really well, and overall, it's a style that I like. But there's also a lot of bands I like that. They just have their sound, they stick to it. There's really not a tremendous amount of surprises, but it kind of comes down to the execution of their sound and how much energy they do it with. And I would say they did this one pretty energetically. And I mean, honestly, their cover of Artifacts, The Black Rain, is fucking spot on. It's one of my favorite In Flames songs from the past, and they absolutely nailed it. It also reminded me of like, hey, In Flames has a new album coming out, and I'm not fucking dreading it. I'm still kind of weirded out by that, but so far, every single that In Flames has released has been pretty fucking good. So I don't know, man. I'm a little weirded out. Maybe the rest of the songs will suck, and I'll be like, okay, all right, that makes sense. But I have a feeling I might be completely wrong on that, and I might be, you know, praising In Flames' name again, which I haven't done in years, unless I'm talking about the older stuff. But yeah, this is good. Like, it's just solid, straightforward melodeath. It's energetic, it's battle-driven, there's good melodies. It's just kind of samey. Like, there's a lot of songs in here that are kind of, well, the same as other songs in here. Like, they kind of stick to the mode. But again, none of it is necessarily bad. It's just kind of rinse and repeat. But yeah, definitely check out this band. I mean, if you like melodeath, I'm reasonably sure you're going to find some cool stuff in there you like. And if you like that song, then you'll probably like the rest of them because, again, there's not a lot of variety, but it is executed well. So yeah, either way, just check them out. Disillusion Ayam, or Ayam. I'm not entirely sure how to say that word. Anyway, this is the 4th album from this German progressive death metal act, or just progressive metal. I don't know. Like, it's kind of in between there. To be honest, I kind of forgot about this band. I only own their album Gloria, which I was kind of on. I thought it was interesting, but it was never interesting enough for me to actually want to go out and check out more of their stuff. But I saw this album get brought up a lot. I think it was namely Forge Master reviews. Really, like, had a lot of praise for this. And I was like, yeah, I remember them. And I don't necessarily remember that Glory album being that good, but the songs that they played snippets of was like, okay, that sounds fantastic. And they were right. This is a fucking extraordinary album. I absolutely love it. There's a lot of things on here that this band does kind of differently in terms of progressive death metal or progressive metal. Namely, vocals. Vocal dynamics on here, I think, are very key to their sound. When they're clean, it's more of like like kind of sullen goth rock sound. Like they're very deep. They're kind of like baritone. There's like a crooning to them. They sound almost depressive. And when they're more harsh, it's almost like a bellowed spoken word. And while it doesn't like sound like, you know, like gross fucking death metal roars like, you know, early Ockerfeld or anything like that, it has its own sort of gravitas to it. Like, I just like how dramatic they are. It just feels very epic, and it kind of adds to this, like, almost storytelling sort of vibe to a lot of the songs. But, man, these guys know how to write some killer fucking hooks. Like, the melodies are on point. There's really good synth interplay, and the vocal hooks, especially, I think are great. Like, Tormento has this really cool, like, pivot between, like, clean vocals and harsh vocals on the pre-chorus, and the chorus itself is this giant death metal breakdown, which is just fucking snarling. But you have songs that are a little bit more like soft and wispy, like Driftwood and Long Hope that I love. The opening track, Abgrund, sure, giant 11-minute opener that is just epic as hell. The swings in terms of mood and everything are just great. There's blast beats, there's like some great like Hypocrisy style melodic death metal on there, and with this giant lush production done by Jens Bogren, like almost sounds kind of symphonic, but not in like an irritating way. Like this doesn't sound like symphonic metal, it's definitely structured like progressive metal, but it's just such a huge sounding album, and it really keeps you guessing in terms of like the songwriting on here, like, you know, where the next big, you know, giant crescendo is going to be, because these songs really build interestingly. While there's a lot of really heavy material, there's also a really fair amount of like clean playing and just softer material, and like even some nods like classic prog in terms of like, you know, some interesting moments on here. I fucking dig this. This is absolutely incredible, and this makes me want to actually check out more by the band. Like, maybe this was the release I needed to hear. Maybe it wasn't Gloria, because I kind of bought that one on a whim, and I remember it just being kind of okay, like more or less just kind of weird, and I just didn't know what to make of it. But this is fucking excellent. I dig it. This is just fantastic prog metal that's very engaging and actually has some sort of like unique appeal. Like, it really doesn't sound like a lot of prog metal out there. It definitely has like comparisons you can be making, but I think there are elements on here that make it stand out. Definitely check this out. This is an absolutely fantastic album, and I'm definitely going to be hunting down more. So yeah, good stuff. My Dying Bride, As the Flower Withers. This is the debut album from this band of UK Death Doom fucking legends, pretty much pioneers of the whole Death Doom movement. Came out in 1992. This is the remaster from 2004. I've been meaning to get this for a while, and yeah, this is honestly one of my favorite albums by them, and it is possibly their heaviest album. This definitely has more death metal elements than I would say a good chunk of their releases. Like Forever People and Vast Choirs are notably faster, more aggressive, but they throw in the just absolutely misery-soaked, oppressive Death Doom sections on there to just make the fucking sadness just seep in, because this band is all about just being bummed the fuck out. Everything about their aesthetic, you look at pictures of them, you look at the album cover, which I hope that lone titty doesn't get me in trouble in terms of censorship, but everything is just about misery, melancholy. But I like the fact that this album, I think, stands out a little bit just in terms of there being a little bit more added aggression to it. I like a lot of their later stuff. I do think they kind of got a little bit more, I don't know, I would say like Ren Fair-ish. Like, it definitely has that very like sort of classic medieval sort of sound, like very gothic. Like, this definitely has gothic atmosphere, but there's also a bigger focus on being heavy and brutal, which that definitely resonates with me. And that is one of the reasons why I absolutely love this album. I've jammed the song The Forever People numerous times. The riff work on there is just notably more aggressive than the bulk of their material that would actually follow. That being said, I do miss Aaron's clean vocals, which would show up in the later albums, and they added such a level of despair, I think, to their albums. Not that they needed any more despair, because they're just kind of chock full of it anyway, but his clean vocals are so goddamn sad, but they're so fucking good. That is the only thing I think that is missing from this album that I think would make it maybe even better, especially in the more like doom-laden sections, because this is almost all harsh vocals. I don't think there are any clean vocals on here, but at the same time, I love how just oppressively fucking heavy this is. Like, this is just a monumentally, disgustingly heavy, bleak album. And I love it. Yeah, it's dark, it's gloomy, it's definitely not feel-good music, but it's fucking really good. The bonus track in here, Erotic Literature, I think is absolutely excellent too, and this does include a demo of The Bitterness and the Bereavement, which is another excellent track. All the tracks in here are excellent, but this demo is exceptionally raw. I mean, it came out in like the early 90s, so it's about as raw as to be expected, but it's still really cool hearing how just gross and disgusting that song was in its infancy. This is a fantastic album. I think, honestly, it's one of the best debuts in, I would say, all of the whole Death Doom movement that took over in the UK, the whole Peaceville 4 or 3. I don't know, some people don't count either Anathema or Catatonia, but I think all those should be counted. Well, I mean, Catatonia was Swedish, but, you know, whatever. They're a part of that whole movement. Anyway, this album's fantastic. Definitely glad I found this one, and I strongly recommend it if you've, again, ever been on the fence about My Dying Bride, or you just don't want to be depressed as hell listening to music. I kind of get it, but at the same time, give this one a chance. That's definitely one of the heaviest albums I've done, if not the heaviest. So I think that brutal edge kind of makes it a little bit different, but yeah, just check it out. It's a fucking awesome album. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Return of the Dream Canteen. It's the 13th album from Red Hot Chili Peppers, you know, funk rock, alternative rock, whatever the hell you want to call them. The fucking Chili Peppers have been around for fucking forever. And I didn't even know this one came out. This came out in October of last year, and I just thought they were just done releasing one album that year, because in April they dropped Unlimited Love, which I really enjoyed. The return of John Frusciante on guitars. Did a great job. I'm a longtime Chili Peppers fan, and that one definitely scratched that itch. And lo and behold, they had a second album of kind of completely different stuff. Looking up some interviews and background behind this, I guess Frusciante said that this was intended to be like a more experimental album. They were both recorded at the same time, both Unlimited Love and this one, but this was intended to be like different than Unlimited Love. That one was supposed to be like kind of just like a straight up return to just everything you love about Red Hot Chili Peppers. And this is definitely that, but it's also a little bit spacier, more atmospheric. You have more funk-laden songs like Fake as Fuck and Tip of My Tongue. But you also have like rockers that are really cool, like Reach Out, Bag of Grins, Copperbelly, and Carry Me Home, which I think is awesome. It's very bluesy. Like, it's kind of outside of what Red Hot Chili Peppers usually does, which is, you know, funk-laden, very groove-laden, and, you know, just kind of like general warm, fun songs with, you know, Anthony Kiedis telling you about California, because he can't go one album without telling you about California. But there's some really interesting stuff in here that maybe I wasn't expecting, like, again, the spacey atmosphere. There's more horns on here, like there's sax on here, there's trumpet, there's trombone, and they're employed really well. And of course, they're just flat out catchy songs. Like the song Bella, I think is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, it's just such a catchy fucking song. And the last track, In the Snow, is almost like a Prince song, except, you know, Anthony Kiedis is doing the vocals instead of Prince. I don't know, I'm just a big fan of Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think they're some of the best musicians in the fucking game. Like, John Frusciante is an amazing guitarist. I love his, you know, very emotive leads and his just solid funk riffs and rock riffs, like kind of mixing together. Chad Smith is a fucking goat when it comes down to just solid in the pocket fucking grooves. He's just a badass fucking drummer. And Flea is a god tier bassist still. I love his fucking funky playing, and I get all that. Anthony Kiedis is still a solid vocalist too. Granted, yeah, I'm gonna get tired of him talking about California and just saying things that rhyme, but occasionally when it comes together and he's actually talking about something, it really works. And this was kind of a pleasant surprise. Like, again, I didn't even know this came out. Like, when I saw this pop up when I was ordering stuff on Amazon, it was like, is that a Yes album? That doesn't look like their logo. It seems like there's more than one word there. And lo and behold, it's fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it's really fucking good. Honestly, there's only like a couple of Red Hot Chili Pepper albums I don't like, but yeah, this one, again, I kind of thought it was going to get a bunch of extras, like some cast-offs from Unlimited Love, and no, it's a legit second album that came out, and I think it's I would say like on par with Unlimited Love, but it's just a little bit different. And I like that. Like, I like their more experimental side on some of these tracks. And again, they just write fun songs. I don't know, it feels like a little bit looser on this one, and it's just fun to listen to, which I think is ultimately kind of the thing I want out of a Red Hot Chili Peppers album. I want it to be fun and entertaining to listen to, and this is definitely that. So yeah, if you didn't know this came out, much like I didn't know this came out, I think this still sold really well, and it had a whole bunch of singles. I just missed them for whatever fucking reason. But yeah, check this out. It's fucking good. Slaughterday, Tyrants of Doom. This is the 4th album from this German death metal act, a 2-man death metal act. Kind of bordering on Death Doom. It kind of depends on when you catch them. I own a fair amount of their albums, and kind of their thing is it's straight up old school death metal, but when they get groovy and like slow it down, there is a doomy-like tinge, like kind of similar to Asphyx a little bit, but with a cool flair for melody in the lead work that is almost more reminiscent of like classic heavy metal. I really dig these guys. I've come back to them numerous times. I've probably brought them up in collection updates numerous times, and I just think these guys know how to write solid meat and potato songs that are catchy but very aggressive. And once again, I think this band did that. I think their last album was a little bit more on the doom side. Like, there are some definite death doom breakdowns on here, but a lot of this is very high octane. Once you get past the kind of long intro Dawn of the Goblin, which honestly the first sound effect that pops up on there is this weird synth effect that reminded me more of Steve Miller's Fly Like an Eagle than, well, anything else. Like, I was just kind of waiting for the, Fly Like an Eagle riff to come popping up, but no, it goes into like this kind of gothic, symphonic, Castlevania boss fight sort of music. Like, I'm talking like modern Castlevania, like not as much as like the Nintendo and Super Nintendo stuff. But yeah, it is just sort of an interesting intro, and then you get right into the fucking beatdowns. The guitar tone in here absolutely fucking snarls. It's thick, it's chunky. Like, it's kind of got like a little bit of thrash to it, but there's like a deepness to it, like almost kind of like Crowbar. Like, it has that sort of thick, chunky sound that you would expect from Kirk, except playing, much faster than Kirk. Like, Kirk, he gets fast every now and then, but most of the time it's kind of that slow, lumbering groove. But this is definitely more like death metal, like kind of fast, a little bit of a thrashy backbone, kind of like Pestilence, I would say, albeit with like just an even chunkier guitar. But again, when they slow it down, it just gets kind of a doomy tinge to it. Like, it's not necessarily like, like a straightforward death metal breakdown where there's still like, some rampant aggressive energy. It's very dark sounding, like Grave Nihilist, Necromantic Visions, and Drowned Filth, which is possibly my favorite track on here. It just feels like way more oppressive. It doesn't necessarily feel like as aggressive as, say, like, again, like a regular death metal breakdown. And I think that kind of makes them stand apart. Now, I will say they do lay on this formula. There isn't a lot of deviation. It doesn't really change very much. But overall, like, it's the intensity on here. They fucking deliver on just killer fucking riff after riff on here. And it's that keeps my interest, pretty much peaked the entire time. And I do love their cover of Predator, originally done by Carnivore. They do a solid job. Much more aggressive than the original and definitely more of a death metal spin on it, but they definitely capture the essence, and it's just a solid cover. But yeah, this is just a fucking banger of an album. I do think I like the one before this one a little bit more, but this is solid. Like, straightforward, to the point, the riffs are aggressive, it's catchy, it's fun, and ultimately that's kind of what I want out of old school death metal. So if you did not get a chance to check this one out when it came out last year, I strongly recommend it, and just go check out, like, honestly, the rest of their fucking albums, because honestly, they don't really have a bad one. So yeah, check it out. And finally, we have Sumerlands, I don't know, it might be Summerlands. Dreamkiller. This is the second album from this Philadelphia-based heavy metal act. Features members of Eternal Champion, Innumerable Forms, and Pagan Altar. Actually, their frontman, Brandon Radigan, their newest member, I believe, is from Pagan Altar, and this is just straight up classic heavy metal, and it fucking rips. I should have got this when it came out. I thought about reviewing it. I like the singles, but for whatever reason, I slept on it, so here I am talking about it now, and this is wonderful. This is pure throwback. This is very much in the vein of like Diamond Head, Angel Witch. It is pure, just catchy, old school, early 80s new album worship, and they do it fucking well. Production and guitars on here done by Arthur Risk, who does a fantastic job on here, both in terms of playing and production. This has that old school fucking vibe in the production. Lots of like D-beat stompers, again, very similar to, you know, like early Iron Maiden too. I'll throw that in there. Lots of lead harmonies, great solos, but man, the vocals on here, Brennan is a solid fucking singer. I don't think I've ever jammed Pagan Altar before, but I might have to because he's got some great pipes. Now, while a lot of this I would say is very high energy, it's very driving, very energetic, I like the more mid-tempo tracks like Night Ride and Edge of the Knife. Those are fantastic, and honestly, they kind of sound like old Scorpion songs, and I'm a sucker for that. Like stuff that sounds like In Trance or Taken by Force, like it has that sort of vibe and those sorts of hooks. And with Brennan's very catchy vocals, like those songs absolutely fucking soar. And the big, almost Dio-ish song, The Savior's Lie, I fucking love that. It's very much like a Dio song, like it kind of builds up, there's a giant epic quality to it. I want to say there's even a keyboard solo in it. I'm not entirely sure. I know there are synths on here, but they're generally used as like a background thing. Like this is very guitar and vocal driven, but I think there might be a keyboard solo in there and it just adds love. Like all these songs I think are excellent. They're all very catchy. The title track is fucking fun as hell. Force of a Storm, a little bit shorter, but it's just a great ripper. And this album itself is kind of short. I think it clocks like a little bit over 34 minutes, but it's pretty much all quality. So I really don't have a complaint there. Honestly, I really feel like I should have reviewed this. I don't know if this would have been on my year-end list, but it would have been rated really high. Like all of this I think is really good. I honestly never checked out their debut, and now that I have this, I think I'm going to have to. I know it's with a different singer, but if the music is just as good as it is on here, then there's a good chance I'm probably going to like it. So yeah, if you missed this one too, much like I did, go get it. Like if you're a fan of classic heavy metal, like if you love Angel Witch and fucking Diamond Head especially, I think you're going to love this. This is just top-notch fucking nostalgia, I guess you could say. Absolutely killer album, front to back. Definitely check it out. All right, and that knocks out for this collection update. This was a pretty sizable one, and I have a large stack to go through, as well as, you know, the Amazon stuff I picked up. There's been some stuff that has been sent to me as well, and man, a lot of good stuff to go over. So this next one should be a lot of fun as well. So of course, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our store is there if you'd like to get one of our shirts. We do need to restock. We are eventually going to have to get down to that, but we've been busy with a lot of other stuff. But we will eventually. But yeah, the Patreon link's down there too if you would actually like to help out. And Denver Death Fest, we have our first announcement in terms of the first wave of bands. And those are, I believe, all the local support from the Denver area. So honestly, I don't know much about them, so I still need to jam them. But there will be announcements coming up for, I guess, every update. I think they're going to do it 5 bands at a time. So I expect 5 more videos announcing 5 more bands. And I believe more national acts are going to be the bulk of them. But anyway, there is a link down below for the Denver Death Fest if you'd like to get tickets. It takes place April 20th through April 22nd in Denver, Colorado, because duh, at the King Room, which looks like it's going to be a pretty solid venue. And yeah, for anything else that I don't know, well, just stay tuned for the updates from Miller and John because they definitely know more. And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the fucking world to us. Again, this surpassed any expectations I had years ago, and it just continues to fucking blow my mind that we're getting close to 14,000 subscribers. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, honestly, 10,000 was ridiculous. Actually, 5,000. 1,000 was ridiculous. Because never in a million years did I think that this would, you know, really take off, but it really has, and I owe it all to you guys. Like, it's absolutely amazing to be doing this, and getting such a great response. You guys are fucking awesome. And I look forward to overloading you with more music than hopefully you can possibly listen to, because that's kind of my thing. So once again, thank you all so much, and we will catch you later.